sunglasses on.
No worries.
Anyway, thank you. So I do work for Camden, but I'm here for Parks for London because, so I'm here on behalf of Parks for London, along with my colleagues, Meredith and Janice. And Parks for London is an independent organisation that brings together parks managers across London. And I chair an action group on women's safety. What that really means is hosting Teams meetings and having really honest conversations with peers and giving a platform to really good case studies and good practice. So we find it really useful. So yes, the role of Parks for London is a centre of excellence. We support people who own, design and manage London's green infrastructure, developing networks, sharing good practice, and the mission is to ensure that London has a really well-resourced network of high-quality, thriving, safe, innovative and stimulating parks that are accessible to all, so quite a lot. There's a number of action groups, but I'm going to talk about women's safety today. But yeah, I just wanted to say a sort of thank you to Parks for London, really, just that they were just so invaluable during the pandemic. And, I don't know how many parks managers there are here, but, we really were, having to look at things, whether we were really going to be spraying playgrounds with, antiviral things, hand sanitizers at tennis courts. Things were just moving so quickly. And, the people who were doing the job on the ground needed really clear direction. So it was really helpful to have a kind of network and, where we could get messages very quickly to people who needed it. So the action group came about. It came about because of a number of reasons. There was a call to action from a colleague of mine in another borough, asking if we together could develop a peer-led safety tool around women's safety. And we soon realised how difficult that was, and that's why this conference is really brilliant. At the time, we'd just had some really horrific murders in London. We had Nicole Smallman, Viva Henry, Sarah Everett, who we mentioned, Sabina Nessa. And they happened, in really different neighbourhoods in London. And they were terrifying. And as kind of parks professionals, we don't want people to be terrified of parks. We've all talked about how important it is for women to use them. But, around the lack of an evidence base, it's really difficult to, you have to be careful what you say. So we couldn't blindly say, our parks are safe, come and use them. So that was another driver for it and something that we've kind of been exploring as a group. Parks London has pulled together a Pan-London multi-disciplinary group. Lots of different types of parks and park managers, and Marina has presented another one of our meetings. And as I said, it's trying to balance the narrative about women's safety based on reliable data and not perception alone. Trying to identify some appropriate reporting mechanisms, and again, ultimately, to improve the perception of public space and parks. At the same time, Parks for London were also working on a piece of research about young Londoners' green space use and their mental well-being because of the big problem in that cohort. And just the findings really chime with this conference. So it's really good that 64% of young people believe that spending time in their green space is important to them, and that 66% do that, fitting that all in between school and college and whatever they do. But then that 56 were deterred by bad maintenance or challenges to maintenance or challenges to providing attractive parks, really. So, that's a really interesting read if you haven't read that. So these are some of the questions that we're asking ourselves. ultimately trying to dispel urban myths and crime data, but we have found that there's problems about the way crimes are reported and whether you can link those to parks or not. So that's been a really big challenge to our group. And the fundamental questions: are parks less safe than other public spaces in London? We're asking all our kind of members who sit around the table, what's your borough done? Have you done your community safety survey on women's safety? What were the key findings? How are you going to be using that as managers? And any relevant voluntary sector projects going on. You know, there's really good grassroots stuff. People are, young girls are posting things up about their experiences, and it's quite shocking, really. And just how can we use that? You know, we need to use it quickly, and how can we use it to influence how our parks are managed? These are some of the good practice and case studies that we've had around the table. We had Anna, which was great, obviously. But yeah, there's some really interesting stuff. Like Ealing have done some really interesting stuff following their survey on lighting and park design, and particularly around travel, I think, and which areas of parks should be lit to help encourage active travel. And yeah, just keeping an open mind. Like the Women's Safer Night Charter has been really interesting. You know, we've got some really interesting insight into like what it's like to be a frontline worker on a shift, how it is to travel across London. You know, do you use a park? How do you feel about your parks when you're doing that? Yeah, these are just some resources that you can use. So you can look on the website, it's all up there. And our meeting in June, we've got Make Space for Girls, which is great, and also we're looking at the Go Jauntily app. That's a slight repetition. Yeah, I think partly because of the lack of data, but also the most appropriateness, just recognising lived experience, dropping into Camden. Our head of, our lead member for community safety is really good at doing walkabouts. She gets right down there, stands in the middle of the park and talks to a range of residents, people who are trying to manage improvement district managers, community safety officers, the police. It's just really good to do walkabouts, as we've spoken about. Like I said, learning from different sectors and people you might not think of. And then, this is just something that I think is really difficult. Applying what you've learned on a hyper-local level, just because everything's really, every park's different, every community is different. So just choosing where, what you can do and where is really important. And we still have a desire to develop or use an audit tool that becomes available. Lots of us are very familiar with the green flag and find it very useful. We tend to think along those lines, but we're kind of open-minded about how we should do this. I suppose the fifth one's just a call to action, really. I think personally, I've worked for Camden in Parks for about 20 years, so I've seen how much things have changed. Our management team, the council, it's all so much, it is really much more diverse. But I feel like we've got a bit of a hangover from male design, male use of parks. And we're at a really interesting point, aren't we? We could come out, fresher and feeling better using that analogy. And it's just really important. Camden's done a lot of work with Islington actually around a Parks for Health project, so we know how important they are. But they have to be safe and they have to be attractive. I think that's it from me. So feel free to get in touch, feel free to look at the Parks for London website. It's got some really interesting discussions up on there. That's it.
Thank you very much.